Greetings, gamer chums. Guess what? It's time for another platform classic. Are you shocked? Well, you shouldn't be. Yeah, it's Dizzy, the classic from Codemasters. The game that really put Richard and David Darling on the map. And a game I loved very much as a kid. Like so many other games, I never even came close to beating it. But after a few practice goes, I found myself able to do it this time around. It's actually not that hard. As a kid, I thought it was virtually impossible, but it really didn't take that long to work out what to do. There's an awful lot of toing and froing. There's a ridiculous amount of that, in fact. But the game itself isn't all that hard. I lose 2 or 3 lives on this playthrough. So, yeah, I'm not recording the commentary live. I wasn't able to this time. But to begin with, I should probably tell you the story. So there's this wizard called Zax, who's kind of taken over Dizzy's homeland, and I think kidnapped all his people, which is why there's no other yoke folk around, as they're called. And Dizzy's job is to put together this potion that will eradicate the wizard and free all his people. So you wander around the map, and there are objects to collect that most of which have a use somewhere. There are a few red herrings. When I was a kid, I remember thinking there was only one red herring, which is the magnet. You won't see the magnet till much later, but when I was younger, I knew for a fact that you don't need it. As I discovered, studying, as it were, for this playthrough, there are several objects that you don't need, and therefore several screens you don't need to go to. Some of them lead to extra lives, and some of the objects just lead nowhere. So I'm leaving out as much as I can, but there's still an awful lot of wandering around to do. So to begin with, I take the crowbar and open the little door down here. Now you notice that I picked up the bird seed and it killed off a few of the birds, because everything kills you in one hit in this game. All the enemy sprites will kill you in one go. But there are some items you can pick up, and while they're in your possession, they protect you. So as you can see, the raincoat protects you from those drops, and once they're gone for good. Which is good, because otherwise the game would be substantially more difficult. You can wander around the map and just take out all the things that harm you, well, most of the things that harm you. There are more birds, and I get rid of those at some point. There are spiders and bats. And you can get rid of them all. So the clove of garlic there is for taking out the bats. So I'm guessing they're supposed to be vampire bats. A bit simplistic, but it works. This, I believe, was the second game by Richard and David Darling. The first game being Ghost Hunters, which I remember playing, but I didn't enjoy it that much. I don't know what it was, I just couldn't get into it. It is a much harder game than this, but that's not why I didn't like it. I mean, it was a platform game, and I'm very fond of platform games and always have been. But that does not mean I like them all. Sometimes I leave objects in certain places just so I know where they are. For the most part, what I do is I'll take them to the surface. If I'm in an underground screen, I'll take them somewhere to the surface. That way I will find them easily enough. Now that Ghost Hunters laser was obviously a reference to the game Ghost Hunters. It only has one use. So that's why it disappeared when I destroyed that ghost. So it's time to take out a bat or two. The paths of some of the enemies are totally unpredictable. The birds, the bats, even the spiders sometimes just randomly change direction. There are apples that fall out of trees, which you'll see, and they kill you. But if you have that miner's hard hat on, which you saw there, you can get rid of the apples as well. The problem with the apples is that they fall at entirely random intervals. Sometimes they don't seem to appear at all. Sometimes they appear very suddenly and then just hang there for ages before dropping. So they can be a real killer. All I'm doing at the moment is just trying to obtain the objects that I need for the potion that will kill Zax. I think there are four or five. You'll see what they are as we go along. That's the purse of gold, which I'll need a bit later on. That will directly help me get one of the potion objects. After playing through this, I figured I might try and do some of the other Dizzy games as well. So I'm already in training for Treasure Island Dizzy, which is the sequel to this. I think I played the first 3 games at the time they came out. 3 or 4. Fantasy World Dizzy is the 3rd game, and I definitely had that, and I'm pretty sure I beat it too. I'll eventually get into that at some point. Yeah, so there's a bird that I haven't killed yet. And that's probably the most dangerous apple in the game. You can't really jump past it. Not easily, anyway. So you need the miner's hard hat to get rid of it. So going back for the bird seed. This game came out in 1987, I believe. That would have been the same year as games like Combat School, which I might get to at some point. I've actually discovered that in doing this, I'm going back and beating games that I didn't beat when I was young, apart from Renegade and Target Renegade, which I did beat. But back then, back in the 80s, I never beat Jet Set Willy, Jet Set Willy 2, Manic Miner, Robot Rumpus, or this game, and now I've done them all. A few of them were challenging, Jet Set Willy 2 being by far the hardest. I was surprised at how easy this was. I mean, not easy, but not as difficult as I imagined. And it only took a few practice goes to actually do it. I mean, I had the slight advantage of remembering that there's at least one object that was a red herring that was not needed. But like I said, in playing through the game, in sort of researching it as I went through, not researching it online, just actually playing, trial and error, I discovered the few other items that you don't need, which therefore simplifies the game. Another apple there, not the scariest one in the game, that apple, it's quite easy to avoid. Yeah, you can't really plot the path of the birds as far as I know. So you've really just got to chase them around the screen. I still need the birdseed, but I can't use it now because there's a door blocking my path in this screen. So drop it there. Yeah, I don't bother to stop and read those scrolling signs that you see in the rooms because they scroll very slowly. And of course I don't need the information. If you wanted to find out what they are, I dare say you could. Dig a hole in the ground, but it's not time to go down there yet. There is one item on the far left of the map, which is an emerald. You have to climb a mountain to get to it. And as I discovered while playing, you don't need it. It does actually have a function, but you don't need it. You place it into the eye socket of this yellow idol, which you'll see later, and it opens up a hole in the ground. But there's nothing down there. There's just a secret passage that you don't need to go down. So one or two of the red herring items do lead to extra lives, but I didn't really need them. I was never desperate for lives while playing through this. So I didn't bother. And anyway, trying to get them itself presents certain dangers. So it really wasn't worth it. So you give the gold to the hermit, you jump up, and that falls out of the sky. It's a bit... I don't know how terribly logical that is, but you'd have to think to yourself, well, I must have got this bucket going for a reason. Why am I allowed to climb up here? It didn't take me long to figure out what happens if I jump up out of the top of the screen. And the cloud silver line is one of the objects you need for the potion. It doesn't matter what order you put them into the cooking pot, which is good. In that goes. Sometimes I was standing around thinking, okay, what shall I do next? Because there's no specific order you have to do things. Now that was something I couldn't control. Sometimes Dizzy just rolls and you can't stop him. So I lost a life there. It was completely out of my hands. And I think, I decided not to go to the graveyard yet because there is one lousy water droplet falling from the sky that would kill me. So I need the raincoat. Like I said, it's a bit of a rigmarole going back and forth because you can only carry one item, which is something that was rectified for Treasure Island Dizzy because you can carry 3 in that game, and it's I dare say Codemasters probably had a few complaints saying that, well, we love Dizzy, but it's a bit laborious having to go back and forth. Anything you can do about that? And evidently there was. So yeah, I'll get to Treasure Island Dizzy. I think I'm right in saying it's a faster game than this one. It's like you can get through it faster. Even though you have to find 30 hidden gold coins. That can be a bit of a pain when you don't know where they are. But I think I've worked it out. Yeah, so coming all this way just to do that. And I think that's the last time I need the raincoat. Now I've got to go all the way back just to get the graveyard key. This seems to be the portion of the map where you spend most of your time just traipsing back and forth. Just these few screens. I'm not sure how big the map is, but it can't be that many screens. It wouldn't be as big as even Jet Set Willy 1, I don't think. You get, I believe, 1,000 points for every new screen that you visit in this game, as well as points for other things. You know, using objects in the right place, that kind of thing. Killing the enemy sprites. So there's my key. Like I said, I like to leave them above ground. I don't know, Dizzy has 2 hands. Why can't he carry 2 objects? I know he's wearing boxing gloves, but still. If he can carry 1. Wait patiently for the apple. I did wonder while I was playing this actually that if the miner's hard hat protects you from falling stalactites, falling apples, why doesn't it protect you from raindrops? I actually didn't test it, so if it does, it would make the raincoat a bit redundant, so I imagine it doesn't. It just makes you vulnerable to them, which is a bit weird. I'd expect more from a miner's hard hat, really. Graveyard is open. Need the birdseed straight away. Yeah, so that's the yellow idol. You put the emerald in there and you can get beneath it, but there's no need. It's just a cave. There are no objects in there. I don't know if there's any way to advance through it, but evidently it doesn't matter anyway. I realized I needed the birdseed again there. I think that's it. No more use for the birdseed. This screen, the broken-hearted woman, there's an object called the broken heart, which you find inside the castle to the right there. And again, that's one you don't need. It lets you into that tomb, and you will find an extra life down there, but that's all. There are no objects that will advance you through the game, so that's just something else I don't bother with. Didn't need to kill that spider because it's kind of harmless, but kind of prejudiced against them in this game because they are fairly lethal. And I just want to play it safe. So now it's time to go back and eradicate the spiders that are in my way. Now this screen you always have to jump over that middle bit. I haven't mentioned that previously, but if you stand in the middle, the bridge collapses and you're screwed. You can't get out unless you lose a life. If you lose a life, it will put you to the side of the screen, but you won't be able to get across. It splits the map and there's nothing you can do. You might as well quit and start again. Not sure what the bridge is meant to be made of, but it doesn't look very sturdy, does it? Decided to go back up because I remembered there was one other spider that I would need to kill because I would have to cross its path again later. Could have saved a little bit of time by doing this one first. And there it is. Bye-bye. So satisfying. I wondered if there were any more up the mountain, but there aren't. So I was safe to go back. Pondering what to do. You do a lot of pondering what to do in this game. Or just pondering what order to do things in. So this is vital to getting the miner's hard hat. I could have left the can of insecticide there, but like I said, much rather leave it above ground where I can easily see it. Not forget where it is. So it'll soon be time to go down the mines, as it were. There are plenty of places where stalactites fall from the roof, so you need that. You need the hard hat. Like the other things in the game that kill you, if you destroy them, they don't come back, which is nice. So trekking across the map again. Imagine how much easier this game would be if you could, even if you could just carry 2 objects. Maybe somebody out there has cracked it, and there is a version like that. So I stood around here for ages, waiting for that apple to fall. You see what I mean about their patterns being unpredictable. Come on, fall! And then it fell, and then I remembered I had the hard hat, and could destroy it anyway. Silly boy. Don't forget to jump the middle. I remember as a kid finding this screen with the floating logs frustrating, because I never got the pattern down. It's really simple to jump across if you just let yourself figure it out. You just take the time. So that trowel that you see there, the glowing trowel, moves one of those green mushrooms in order to allow you to escape. But you don't have to. There's a trick to getting out of here. Now, I don't know how I called this one. That jump there. I don't know why I paused there. I think I was just waiting to see if the stalactite would fall. And I'm not sure if I called it on the timing or whether I would have hit it anyway. I'm not really sure. But you really don't want to come down here without the miner's hat, because the stalactites will just kill you indiscriminately. So those are the bolt cutters, which I need. There's an extra life there, which I didn't bother with. Yeah, that's the little trick for getting out. So you don't need the trowel, you don't need to move the mushroom. I believe there's a whole section of the map that I didn't bother going to. Like 3 or 4 screens. Because there's a bit with a boat. I'm sure there's a sort of maze-like thing with some sort of traps, sort of booby traps. I believe that's this game. But it's completely unnecessary. And I can't remember how you get down to it. The bolt cutters are needed right here in this next screen, or rather the one after this one. There's a sort of floating platform thing, so that releases it. You kind of have to leave the screen, because the boat thing acts rather unpredictably, sort of shifting left and right. But if you leave the screen and then go back in, it just moves all the way across the water just from left to right. But the other reason I left is, of course, I decided I needed some other things first. And I think what I need here is the can of dry ice. Yeah, see that white line there? There's a way in there, but you don't have to go down there. And you can go further up the mountain, but you know, I went up to get the crowbar, and there's a screen even beyond that, where there's another bird and that emerald. But like I said, no point going up there, so I didn't bother. It is quite well thought out. Puzzles in this game, you know, they're simple, they're quite logical. And you have to challenge yourself, sort of traversing the map. At least there isn't a time limit. The dry ice you need in the next screen. There are stalactites in this screen, but I risked it anyway. So that froze the water, and I then picked up this object, the leprechaun's wig, which is another of the ingredients for the potion. How many have I put in already? I know I put in the cloud silver line. I wasn't paying full attention. Yeah, I think there are only 4 objects, so I've only put 1 in. There goes the second. Making my way now to get the third. I've forgotten which order I collected them in. But like I said, it doesn't actually matter. You can see it, just how many times you have to walk back and forward across this portion of the map. So many times, just because you can only carry 1 object. So I do tend to try and leave the objects in convenient places. But there's only so much you can do. Sometimes you're just walking ridiculously far just so you can leave an item where you'll need it later. And I don't know if it really helps. What I do find helps, like I said, is that just leaving them on the surface, not leaving them in the underground caves, just so I know where they are. Both of those things there, the insecticide and the garlic, I do need later, but of course I have to carry them individually, so that is a lot more walking back and forth still to be done. The reason I'm going out this way is there is an amulet that you need to protect you from the wizard. And I just want to get rid of the stalactites as I go. Even if it doesn't look like they're going to present a danger, you never know with this game. They're really unpredictable. The water's already frozen. Take care of that. I thought one was going to come down there, and I think it does in that last screen. Yeah, it comes down, but I didn't really think it was going to present much of a danger, so I didn't bother with it. And luckily it didn't come back to haunt me. So there's the amulet that I need, plus an extra life that I don't. You can actually go up from this room. You can go... There's a couple of other screens up there, but there's nothing you need to do. It's not worth it. So this game, it can mislead you a little bit. Just places you don't need to go. I found that jumping onto that lift, it's better to do it when it's moving up, because you tend to roll off when it's moving down. And that's one of the main reasons you die in this game, not being able to control Dizzy's movements when he's rolling. That was a silly mistake. Just jumped far too early. That was also a fatal mistake I made in Jet Set Willy 2. A couple of times. I needn't have exhausted all my lives on that game, but it happened anyway. But never mind. I beat it. Just as I beat this. So I'll most likely do some of the other Dizzy games later on. The challenge in them tends to vary. It's hard to say which one is tougher. I mean, the follow-up to this is Treasure Island Dizzy, which poses less of a threat in terms of... Well, actually, I don't know. It does have just as many enemies, none of which you can actually kill. And you only get 1 life. You get 1 life to do Treasure Island Dizzy, and there are no extra lives. But in many ways it is easier because there's a lot less walking around, a lot less toing and froing across the map. You do have to find 30 gold coins, which can be a bit annoying until you know where they are, because a lot of them are hidden, so you're just walking around trying to find them. But I'll talk more about that if and when I do the game. The can of 3-in-1 oil will open the drawbridge for me, so starting to work towards the end of the game now. Just gotta be patient. Waiting on the lifts, walking back and forth. I suppose this is the one part that takes the longest, really, because all the items I need are kind of there, or in that last screen, or last two screens. And of course, you have to constantly avoid that middle part of that bridge, because at no point do you want that to break, or you're kind of screwed. So you notice that Dizzy moves faster in some screens than he does in others. That's got to be due to sprite activity, I would imagine, taking up processing power. Don't know much about these things, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So time to open the drawbridge. Oh, and that feather there is another of the ingredients. Decide to deal with that right now. Just leaves one more, which we'll be getting to shortly. Yeah, I didn't bother. I think I might have mentioned it before, like just standing in the room waiting for the text to scroll because it's so slow. But I do stand around for the text at the end of the game, the ending bit, so that you get the full ending. Yeah, but it's just as slow. Now, I thought I'd made a mistake there jumping into that screen. I thought I might land right in the middle of the bridge. Fortunately, I didn't. But yeah, I strongly recommend you don't do that. So there goes the third one. I think at this point I go back for the insecticide. All I'm really doing is there's just I think one spider and one bat that I've got to take out. But it's worth doing. You can't really dodge them. You certainly can't dodge the bat because its pattern is totally unpredictable. So it's better just to take the time rather than throw away lives. So last few objects, so far apart. Not much I can do about it. Soon enough we'll get our first glimpse of the wizard Zax, who's a big old dude standing in one room in the castle. There's actually another room in the castle you don't have to go into, which is kind of like an oubliette. They call it the waiting room, rather comically. Yeah, now you see here, I decided just to try and get past the bat to collect that object, which is the troll brew, the last thing you need for the potion. Down there you can see the magnet, which we don't need. Yeah, lost a couple of lives trying to get past the bat here. Yeah, so the magnet is a red herring, you don't need that. And the the hole in the ground that was in that same room leads down to that oubliette, which just kills you. Basically, the only way to get out, if you fall in there, is to lose a life. So avoid that room altogether. We're almost completed the potion here to kill Zax, but you can't just walk up to him and throw it in his face. You gotta have the amulet first, and you'll see why. But patience, we're almost there. I wonder how much shorter this game would be if you could carry 2 items. The Dizzy games tended to vary that. Later on, in some games you could carry 2, in some you could carry 3. I think this is the only Dizzy game in which you can only carry 1 item. So there goes the last one, and here comes the potion. There it is. But first... Oh, actually, not even the amulet yet. I forgot about garlic, get rid of the vampire bat. I know, look, so tantalizingly close, I just can't take them both. All this way to get rid of 1 bat. There's also a drop of water in the room above the bat, for which you think you might need the raincoat, but really it's a waste of time. That you can avoid it. Game looks pretty kind of ghostly without all the enemies in it. You know, you walk into every screen and all the enemy sprites are gone. Kind of weird. So I'm going to eliminate this last bat. Going all this way just to do that. There's a spider in the corner under the stairs that you can't even get to. It's totally redundant. I think I went up here to check it out, make sure there weren't any other bats, and there weren't. What you did see up there was that broken heart, which you're supposed to use in the room we're about to enter. This room. So you use the broken heart in here to get down into the tomb. But, as I said, you don't have to. All that's down there is an extra life, which I currently don't need. And it's taking enough time just to get this far. So now I'm heading back to get the amulet. And then we'll get our first look at the wizard Zax. I'm not sure why this game gives you a high score. It's one of those games, it doesn't even have a high score table. But nonetheless, you do get one. I can't remember if all the Dizzy games give you a high score. But I'm sure none of them gives you a high score table. It's just not really a Dizzy thing. There were, of course, some of the Dizzy spin-off games, which I had as a kid. I had Quick Snacks and Fast Food, which were both pretty good games, I seem to recall. Quick Snacks had more of a story in which Dizzy and family have started a band and are touring. And after a long tour, they decide to go on vacation and they get into some kind of trouble. And Dizzy has to rescue them. It's got some really cool music, I remember. Fast Food is a bit like a Pac-Man style game. I'm not sure it has a story, really. You just go through these continuous levels, picking up food, and avoiding the enemies who look suspiciously like the ghosts from Pac-Man, who, just for your information, are called Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde. I'm sure the ones in Dizzy also have a name, I just can't remember what they are. In Fast Food, rather. Okay, so we're about to get a look at Zax. There he is. Personally, I think he looks like kind of a caricature of the actor Jonathan Pryce. Call me crazy. But to me, he looks a bit like Jonathan Pryce. If there were a Dizzy movie, Jonathan Pryce would play Zax. So now it's time to go back and get the last, absolutely the last item. The potion. The amulet has killed Zax's powers, so he can't hurt us anymore unless we're stupid enough to walk into him, which we're not. So one last traipse across the map, trying not to fall in any holes or into the water or screw up on the bridge. But rest assured that does not happen. I was very careful about that. I think one of the reasons I found this game so hard as a kid is that I didn't know you could get rid of a lot of the enemies because I didn't find some of the objects. I didn't know the miner's hard hat could destroy the apples. So I was just constantly dying because of them. I think I might have found the miner's hard hat, but I didn't know it eliminated the apples. Which is kind of silly. Might have found this game a lot easier if I knew that. I also didn't know that there were several screens you didn't really need to go to, like all the way up the mountain or some of those ice caves. But I've figured it out since, so everything's fine. Here we go. Entering the castle. For one of the easiest boss battles ever. If you don't include the bit where you have to use the amulet against him. Oh, I remember this bit. I kept jumping from the wrong place in the stairs, so I couldn't get up. Dizzy does have a habit of just tumbling everywhere. Okay, avoid the drop. Say goodbye to Zax. Bye, Zax. Congratulations. Dizzy has rid Catmandu of the evil, good God, wizard Zax, and in doing so has gained the respect of which he is truly, spelt wrong, worthy. Is this Dizzy's without an apostrophe only challenge? Or will he be called upon, I picked that up just for something to do, again? Quite a few spelling mistakes. Anyway, that's that. I hope you enjoyed the game as much as I did. Bye bye.